Hello everybody, this is a Poos. Welcome to Pizza and Pasta with the Poos. Today, we're gonna be trying out a new flour that I got. It's a 00 flour by Anna. And what we're gonna do also is we're going to make a Neapolitan pizza dough at 63% hydration. And we're also going to use the Poolish technique, which is a pre-ferment, which you put flour and water of equal parts and yeast. You mix it up just by hand. You don't have to mix it very long. And you let it pre-ferment for up to 24 hours. So they say, I believe they say 16 to 24 hours. So we're gonna do about 24-hour pre-ferment. So let's get it together here. I'm gonna do an 800-gram Poolish because we're gonna be doing 4 pizzas at a little over 400 grams each, which will produce a 14 to 15-inch pizza. So the Poolish is going to be about 15% of the total, 50% of the total weight. So here we go. We're going to do 400 grams of water. Let's tear this out. See, it's very good to get a digital scale when doing this method. All right, we have 403 grams. Not horrible. Now we're gonna put in, we're gonna do for this recipe 7 grams of yeast. So let's zero this out again. And I use active dry yeast. So we want 7 grams. Okay, there's our 7 grams of yeast. Now we're gonna do 400 grams of flour. And we're using that 00 flour, which is an Italian pizza flour, really. And what it is, it's great for pasta as well. But what it is, let's mix this around a little bit. Type 0 is just really, really slowly milled and very fine. Ground fine, you know, milled fine flour. And it's really good to make Neapolitan pizza. I already pre-measured this, so it should be 400 grams. What you want to do about halfway in, you want to mix it around a little bit. You can put it all in and then mix it. It's not that big of a deal, but I like to incorporate some to see where the hydration level's at. You know, because a Poolish is supposed to be fairly wet. That's why you do a 1-to-1 ratio. And when you mix it, you want to get the clumps of flour out as well. All right, so let's dump the rest of our flour in there. And like I said, I pre-measured this to be 400 grams, so. See, with the stuff that's left on the spoon here, we got 392 grams, so this is about 8 grams. Like I said, you want to mix this around. And what you're going to do, after you get this all incorporated, you're going to cover it and try and make it airtight. I'm going to use some cellophane wrap and plus the cover of the bowl here. And you're going to let it sit on your counter at room temperature for about an hour. And then you throw it in the refrigerator for an additional 15 to 23 hours. Now we'll be back at you after the 24 hours is up, and I'll show you how to put this whole dough together. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Pizza and Pasta with a Poos. So what's going on? Today is 24 hours since I made the Poolish right here. Look at how airy and beautiful that is. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick that in my mixer, and I'm gonna take some salt, some water, and some flour, combine all that together to make the dough. Now, like I said yesterday, the Poolish is 800 grams, 400 grams flour, 400 grams water, and the yeast. That was 7 grams active dry yeast. To that, I'm gonna add 230 grams of water to have a total of 630 grams of water for this recipe. I'm gonna let that mix up a little bit. Then I'm gonna incorporate the other 600 grams of flour. That's a total of 1,000 grams of flour. And when I'm about halfway through, I'm gonna add in 25 grams of salt. And that is your typical Neapolitan pizza dough recipe. 4 ingredients, very simple. Now, if you're using a standard home oven, I would suggest adding maybe 1% of some sort of sweetener, either honey, which I believe works the best, or just regular sugar. I would add the 1% of that, and that would help brown the crust a little more. But being I want to do a traditional Neapolitan pizza dough that's going to be cooked in my wood-fired oven, it gets so hot, gets upwards to 800 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't have to worry about the browning, the color of the crust. It's going to happen. So once I get this all mixed together, we'll be back at you. Okay, as you can see, I transferred the Poolish into the mixer, the mixing bowl. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the water, stick it in there, and we're gonna, sorry about that, lost the footing here. We're gonna turn the mixer on and go at a slow speed just to incorporate a little bit. All right, now on my KitchenAid, I'm on speed 2. And as you see, it will eventually incorporate the water into the Poolish. And then once that gets a little smoother, we're going to add in the flour. Okay, so that didn't take very long. It's already pretty much all incorporated, so we're going to start adding in a little flour at a time. And what I like to do when you get about halfway into adding this flour, that's when you're going to add the salt. Now you can use sea salt or regular table salt or pink Himalayan salt or whatever salt you want to use. I tend to just use regular old-fashioned table salt. We're going to let that incorporate a little bit. Now the reason why you add the salt later in the mixing process is because some people say if you add the salt directly to the yeast, it will kill the yeast or hinder the yeast from working. But I don't know how true that is. I'm not a professional baker. I hear other people say that as long as it's not sitting salt and yeast together by itself too long, it'll be okay. So I'm going to try that experiment one day and see. All right, we're about halfway through this flour, and it's mixing up pretty good, as you can see. So I'm going to take the salt and sprinkle that in. Now I like to go by percentages. So this is 2.5% salt. Remember, we're using a total of 1,000 grams of flour. That way we're doing 63% hydration because we used 630 grams of water and 25 grams of salt is 2.5%. And the yeast, when using dry active yeast, I like to go 0.5% to 1%, so I'm right about in the middle there at 7 grams. And that Poolish really bloomed very well. I'm very happy with the way that came out. So I think this dough is going to come out really good. So we just have to mix this for a while. Now I'm going to start adding the rest of the flour. And when it gets to the consistency that looks good, you'll see it. All the flour will come off the sides and the bottom and everything. The great thing about this mixer, this dough hook, it's a real dough hook. It's not one of those C hooks or whatever you call them on the smaller stand mixers. These kind of, the spiral dough hook here that I'm using works so much better. Now, if you really want to make a lot of dough for pizza or breads, I wouldn't get a KitchenAid. I would spend the extra money and get a regular spiral mixer, like a Famag or a Sun Mix. That's what they're made for. They're made for doing dough, lots of dough, bread dough. Anyway, when this gets all incorporated and ready to go, I'll come back at you. Now see how this dough is starting to come together? There's nothing really left on the sides or at the bottom of the bowl. I didn't have to scrape it or nothing. Now once it's coming together, I raised it to speed number 3, and we're gonna let this mix for a good 5 minutes, then let it rest for 5 minutes, then mix it again for another 5 minutes. That way, by letting it rest a little bit, it gives your machine a rest, because this is a good batch of dough here for this machine. And it's also gonna let the dough strengthen up and the gluten form a little bit. It's gonna help the whole process a little bit better. I'll be back at you. A little trick here. When letting it rest, make sure you cover the bowl as best you can with a towel or something, because you don't want the dough to get too much air, to dry out too much. So we're gonna let it rest for the 5 minutes, then mix it for another 5, and I'll show you what it looks like after that. Okay, this has mixed for roughly 10 minutes. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it on our countertop. If you wanna put it on a cutting board or whatever you wanna put it on. I like to put it right on my stone countertop. That way, when you work the dough, you never want the dough to get too warm. So putting it on a stone to work with is pretty good. But I like the way this is coming out. We're still gonna have to work it a little bit by hand, so. So let's take it out. All right, we got it out of the bowl. And it feels pretty good. But what I want to do is I want to give it, see, it's not totally ready yet. It should be, when you stick your finger in it, it should be bouncing back. So we're going to have to knead this for a little while by hand. And what you want to do is you want to knead it for a couple of minutes and let it rest for 5 minutes and take a look at it to see what it looks like at that point if you're ready to go. So we're going to keep kneading this for a couple of minutes and see, and let it rest for 5 minutes. And now when you let it rest, you always want to cover it with the bowl or something, or you don't need to wrap it, or I wouldn't put it directly on a towel, cover it directly with a towel. You just use the bowl, turn the bowl upside down and cover it on the counter like that. Okay, folks, so now it's rested for 5 minutes. We're going to take a look at it and see how it feels. And it feels pretty good right now. See how when I push into it, it bounces back right away? That pretty much means it's done. But I want to take a look and see if we can do the window pane test. So you want to take a little bit and kind of stretch it until you can see, oh, no, it's breaking apart. So that means it's not quite there yet. Well, almost though. So we're going to knead it a little bit longer. Need it for a couple more minutes. And we'll let it rest again. After we knead it for 2 minutes, we'll let it rest again for 5 minutes. The resting part is really, it gets the gluten stronger because it gets the gluten to relax. You know, just like any of you who know about building muscle, you're not building muscle while you're working out. Your muscle is actually building as you're resting, as you're sleeping. That's when it's rebuilding itself. What you're doing when you're working out is you're breaking it down, just like the dough, just like the gluten. Right now we're working it, we're breaking it down. So when we let it rest, that's when it will build itself back up stronger. You got to break something down in order for it to get stronger. Does that make sense? I hope it does. But so right now we're breaking the gluten down. We're beating it up. And also, see how nothing's sticking to my counter? That means the dough is good. We just need it to get a little stronger. So we just kneaded it for a little bit, and that's all you got to do. Now we're going to cover it, and we're going to let it rest between 5 and 10 minutes. Okay, this has rested for nearly 10 minutes. So let's get back to look at it. See, yeah, this is a nice dough. You'll want to have a bench scraper because it will stick a little bit. But look how smooth that is. And boom, it bounces right back. Getting a little air pockets there. All right, let's see how this window pane thing is. Let's just rip off a piece of dough. See, that's getting pretty strong. Not as strong as I want it. So again, we're gonna knead it for a couple of minutes. And let it rest for a few more. All right, let's let it rest for another 5-10 minutes. Okay, so it's rested about 5 minutes. And what we're gonna do now is take another look at it. And like I said before, this feels pretty good. But what I wanna do now is just knead it a tiny bit longer. Yeah, this dough feels good. So after kneading this a tiny bit longer, what I want to do is let it rest for about an hour. Then after that, I'll show you how to ball it up. Like I said, we're going to make 4 dough balls out of this here dough. 4 14-inch pizzas we're looking to make. Maybe 15 inches, but my oven, the max it can go is 15-inch pies. So, but traditionally, Neapolitan pizza is not big anyway. Usually, I believe they're roughly 10 to 12-inch pies usually. I want to do a 14-inch pie because you might have a few people over for dinner tonight, so you want it a little bigger, right? So, all right. Now that we kneaded this a little bit, what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw it back in here. Throw it back in the bowl. And now we're just gonna cover the bowl with the towel, and we're done. So in about an hour, I'm gonna cut these up, portion them out, and make the dough ball. See you back then. Well, it's been roughly an hour, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna take the dough out. And it's gonna stick a little bit to your bowl. You just gotta work it out a tiny bit. Look how much bigger that got in the roughly the hour. No, that's fresh dough there. So, and what you want to do is something like that. And we're going to take my scale. And like I said, we're looking to do a little over 400 grams. So actually, let's weigh this out, see where it's at. Okay, it's exactly 1,600. You know, even though the total dough weighed more on paper, you lose some in the process. That's why you always do a little extra. That's why you don't really worry about the weight of the salt and the weight of the yeast when you're doing the baker's percentage. So what we want to do is, like I said, we're going to do 400. We want to do 4 doughs of 400 grams each. So you cut your 4 doughs. And I'm a little bit off there, I think, because this one's way too small. So this one looks a little big, but let's weigh it up. Almost 408, so we'll take a little bit more off. That's 399.4, so we put a little bit more back on. Boom, 400. Put that aside. This one here, wow, yeah, I was way off on that one. This one's a heavy one. Oh, my measuring skills aren't good anymore. All right, 400. That one's 401, so we take a tiny bit off, and there we go. We're good to go. What we're gonna do here now is we're gonna ball these up. So what you wanna do, well, let's do it over here. Go corner to corner, all right? You could do it that way, or you could just roll it in your fingers and squeeze it tight. Just keep rolling and squeeze it tight. See how it's going? And eventually what you want to do, obviously you want to close off the bottom there. Now I have some semolina flour here. And what I'm gonna do is in my proofing box, I'm gonna sprinkle a little semolina on there. That way the dough don't stick to the bottom. You really don't need that much of the semolina. And then we're just gonna stick a dough there, dough there, dough there, dough there, and let it proof for a little while. So let's ball up another one here. See? Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Close it up at the bottom. You can even close it up this way. Stick it in our proofing box. And you want to keep them apart as best as you can inside there, because they are going to rise dramatically. They're going to double in size at least. And close up the bottom here. All right, our last one. And like I was saying, this should make roughly a 14-inch pizza. We'll see how that turns out later. The pizza peel I use is 14 inches, so. All right. Close the bottom. We're good to go. Now, the doughs are in there. Just spread apart as best you can. And now we're just going to cover it. There, covered. You're going to let it sit at room temperature for at least an hour, maybe 2 hours. All depends on the temperature, the temperature of, the room temperature. Everybody's house is different, right? So it will rise. You want it to rise about double in size. And then if you're not going to use it, put it in the refrigerator. If you're going to use it, you can use it right there and then. All right. I'll let you know how it turns out later. All right, it's been a little over an hour since I made my dough balls. Let's see what they look like. See how much bigger they got? These are now ready to either be used or go into the refrigerator. So I'm not ready to use them right now. So we're gonna throw them in the refrigerator, and I'll pull them out about 30 minutes to an hour before I'm ready to use them. All right, we just started up the oven. We got a bunch of wood in there, some lump coal, some different flavors. And gotta let this heat up for about an hour. And we're gonna start making some pizza. All right, I'm preparing all the ingredients I'm gonna need to make this pizza. Here's those doughs. Look how beautiful they look, wow. And we got the sauce. We got some semolina flour to stretch the dough. We got a little garlic and oil, some black olives, some fresh mozzarella, provolone cheese. We got thinly sliced London broil. We have some prosciutto, onions, orange peppers, and mushrooms. We're gonna make some traditional Neapolitan pizzas, and then we're gonna make some of those specialty pizzas. We also have some grated Romano cheese, Pecorino Romano, the best, I think, for pizza. All right, when they're all done, we'll give you a peek. Okay, here's the first cooked one. Looks pretty good. You hear the crunch? Oh, this is gonna be good. It smells so delicious. I wish everyone could smell it. Now on to the next one. Hey, how's everybody doing? Unfortunately, I lost some video of the last few pizzas I made. So the video ended a little more abruptly than I thought it would. Sorry about that. They did come out pretty good though. So I'm getting the hang of this wood burning oven, and I'm starting to enjoy it. I like the flavor that it gives off on the pizza. The pizza's cooked really well in it. I still got to get better at it, but it's a work in progress. So that dough came out pretty good though. I was happy with that dough. Next time I make a dough, it'll probably be at 65%. 63%, a little dry for my liking. So 65% I think would be perfect for this oven. But you have to test it out. Every oven's different. So, all right. Till next time, folks. Enjoy yourselves. Take care.